I'm going to try and tie some things together. I recently went to see the Grand Canyon, or rather experience it, because I couldn't really see it. And I mean that technically. So I wanted to talk about this thing that I noticed, this new type of enchantment. So I want to talk about this enchantment in terms of time and vastness. And then I want to tie it into why people would even go to Arizona. What is the attraction, or anywhere really in the Southwest, of these deserts, these hot desert lands that are mostly barren. And a lot of people used to go there for their health, right? There are these sanatoriums. That's where you went to go and maybe cure your tuberculosis if you had enough money to afford such a thing. And there's a lot of question as to whether it works. I mean, apparently the AI thinks it doesn't work because it doesn't directly affect the bacteria. Of course, how successful the bacteria is depends on how well you're doing. It's like I kind of suspect it did help quite a bit. So you can see why people might go there if you think that something like an untouched nature away from other people is curative to your disease. And certainly it has that mystique, that aura of untouched, because it's not really well developed. And when you develop things out there, you're kind of limited as to what you can develop. I understand, I've seen Phoenix, but also most of the desert region, you're just limited in what you can build. And the place is vast. It's very, very, very large. And so when you're at something like Grand Canyon and they tell you it's 10 miles across, I don't know, doesn't look 10 miles across to me, but I can't tell either. I can't tell how far across it is. It looks, they say it's a mile down. It looks pretty far down. Is it a mile down? I don't know what a mile down is. And I was there. And so there's that enchantment to the whole place. It's a new place. It's novel. It's not like other places at all. And that gives it the mystical affect. You can kind of see why people might think there's aliens there, because the land itself is alien. And if you are in Domicide and you don't feel like you belong, or you feel boxed in or something on the East Coast, or even in parts of the Midwest, uh, going to a place that looks entirely different, because it does not even look like the Midwest over there at all, not with the mountains and all the terrain slope and the valleys and everything. Anywhere you look, you're going to see terrain, unlike the Midwest, where anywhere you look, you're going to see absolutely the same thing. And so you can see why people would go there to try and find a place to be. So if you feel like you don't belong and you go to an alien place, maybe you belong there. And it's so open. It's so vast. It's so large. Everything's on such an interesting scale that you can't really comprehend correctly. Maybe you can find your place. Even if you don't feel immediately like you belong, there must be a place for you here somewhere. There's so much space, right? There's so many strange things. There's the rocks from the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon. Those rocks are real. They're in Arizona, precariously perched on top of smaller rocks. And like, that's a real phenomena that you can see. And the contrasting colors, and then also the dullness of the desert. There's grapes in the valleys, but the elevation changes very, very fast. At least in the northern part of Arizona, out from Sedona up to the Grand Canyon. 6% grade in a couple places on the highway, and you're going down 1,000 feet in 30 miles or less. It's amazing. Or maybe it was 2,000 feet. I don't even remember. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it gives you that mystical sort of sense because it's so open. And it seems like anything's possible. And you can see where UFOs might land or why they might be there, because there's not that many people out there at the end of the day, not that part anyway. And so it gives you that sense of openness, it gives you this enchantment with this novelty and the scale and the untouchedness. It's very mystical. It feels magical. That's why people are there writing books about the vortex and the experience with the vortex. And you can kind of see by opening people up like that or exposing them to such a different uh, place, physical place, why they would become enamored with it, enchanted by it. It makes perfect sense. Uh, and it never made sense to me before. Well, once I got to the Grand Canyon, and that was the second time I'd been to that part of Arizona. We just didn't see the Grand Canyon the first time. That's when it really hit me. Like, well, this doesn't affect me the way it would affect other people because I'm fairly well grounded. But I can understand the attraction because I never understood the attraction of a place like Sedona. Like, you're in the middle of the desert. It's kind of remote. There's not much going on there, really. I mean, it's pretty, but cow, but people need to recharge. People need to be taken out of where they are and put in a new place every once in a while, right? And so you can kind of see, oh, if you're busy working in a busy city like LA or something like that, how you need to get away, and you need to go somewhere where you don't feel constrained. And that particular part of Arizona certainly can do all that for you. And it's a very large state. It's driving for forever, and you should drive everywhere to get anywhere, really. We went on a couple of interesting hikes that were very pretty. The elevation changes are so fast, and that wherever you are, you can just see something around you, whether they're mountains or ridges or whatever, unless you're deep in the valley, in which case you get this sense for being in this valley. The valleys are very tight, at least the ones I was in. And getting out of the valley and then seeing the scale change so quickly because things are so much further away all of a sudden, whereas before they were pretty close in. And that sense really sort of does something to you. And that's part of the enchantment. And, there's lots of other forms of enchantment, obviously. And I am working on a video on forms of enchantment. I've added time and vastness, or time and scale, to the list based on this particular trip, because I think you really get a sense for that. And I can talk about the Grand Canyon, but it seems silly because unless you're there, there's no way to convey anything interesting about it. I would argue even the pictures, and boy, did we take a lot of pictures, that we took, I don't think they're going to give you much of a sense for what's going on. They might be pretty pictures, right? But it's very hard to convey what happens to you physically when you're in a place that is that large. And because it's very hard to do perspective correctly, even on a camera, it doesn't have the same impact as actually being there. And there's so many lovely hikes and other things, which obviously those can be enchanting as well. Just being able to walk out in an open space, experiencing 100-degree dry heat. I think it was 103 the day that we left. And it was interesting too because we flew out of Flagstaff down to Phoenix. Flagstaff, it was nice. It was like 75. So we went from 103 to 75, and then we flew into Phoenix, and it was 94 still. So the change in temperature or lack thereof is very telling. And it all depends on, are you in the valleys? There's grapes growing naturally in the valleys, right? And then just not too far up from the valley, because they're very steep valleys, there's nothing growing at all, really. There's some scrub pine maybe, right? There's vast fields of basalt rocks from the volcanic eruption of the volcanoes 30 miles away, a million years ago or something, or 1,000 years ago, 1,200 years ago, who knows? And just fields of them, like just fields, and they're larger than whole cities in some cases. They're just huge expanses of lands with nothing but rocks on them, and it's amazing. The canyons are fairly deep, and the layers of rock, you go through millions of years in the Grand Canyon of layers of rocks. And It really does give you that sense of mysticism, that sense of being in a magic place, because you can't really experience that everywhere, right? Most places you can't experience that at all. Even just looking around, your sense of scale is so far off, you can't tell how far away things are and how big they are until you get near them. And in Sedona, they have houses right up against some of these rocks, although they're not right up against. They look like they are. And climbing to a top of a mesa just to get a new perspective on like the parking lot where you parked, and the peaks around you, and all the things that you couldn't see because they were on the other side. It's a very enchanting experience. So I can understand why people would go there and try to like find themselves or look for the vortex experience, which is, sounds very Pentecostal to me. You have this personal private experience, right? And it's in a place, it's in a public place. Anybody can go and have that experience potentially. And so that is a very common form of enchantment, especially within, like I said, Pentecostalism. And that sense of that novel experience, that novel way of being in the world and being in a world that's so open that it seems like the possibilities are limitless, is very much something that I had not understood until I actually went there. And look, I hope I've given you some sense for a different type of enchantment that maybe you've never thought about before. I know I hadn't. And, I really appreciate that you watch my videos. And if you like this one, please like and subscribe and tell your friends. And thank you very much for your time, energy, and attention.